Okay, hi guys. It's Thursday morning. I'm at Burger King. If all goes well, I should be able to pull up the driveway to the drive-thru and say, I'll have the usual. And they'll know what I'm talking about. Let's find out. Jada, hi, I'll have the usual, please. No cookie.
Okay, that's going to be $4.32.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I said, sad or funny, I'm not sure which.
Around so it have a little bit of tension on the rope, so it looked like I was actually hanging, and he was just going to take a picture from my waist up. Anyway, he went to take the picture and the batteries had died, so the camera obviously just shut down. So he went back over there and was replacing the batteries. While he was doing that, Corporal Page walked up and began whispering in his ear, and that should have automatically given it away, and it kind of did. I was kind of suspicious from that point, but it was those suspicions were kind of like thrown out when Corporal Laycock looks at him, and goes, "No, that's not the way it works. If I buy, you fly." And he took out his wallet, took out a $10 bill, and gave it to Corporal Page, and Corporal Page went running out the back door. And in the meantime, he had to replace the camera, replace the batteries in the camera, and we went back over there, and he was giving me direction. He's like, "All right, now let your arms dangle loose. Now close your eyes. Relax them. Don't make any wrinkles. Stick your tongue out a little. Cock your head to the side a little bit. And he's giving me all these instructions so to make a real-looking photo. And I didn't know it, but at that time, he was using his voice to mask the footsteps that were sneaking up behind me. Corporal Page had gone out the front door and came in the back door right behind me and was sneaking up on me. He grabbed the knot and slammed it down around my throat, just as I had exhaled. So immediately I stood up, stunned, because I didn't know. Number one, I didn't know that he was sneaking up behind me. Number two, I just got this rope slammed down around my neck, and number three, I couldn't breathe. So I immediately stood up, and I knew I had just seconds left, maybe 6 to 8 seconds, because I had just exhaled and I couldn't breathe back in. So I jammed a finger into the knot and actually scratched my neck in the process of doing it. I grabbed I had a finger in the noose, and I grabbed the knot in the back, and I was pulling against it. But what I didn't understand is that the rope comes down through the knot, comes off to the side around your neck, then comes back up through. So if you don't grab this knot and twist it over to the side, you'll never get this rope to slide because it's at an L. It's like this. It's hooked into there, and it won't come loose until you straighten it out. Of course, it was on the back of my neck, and I didn't have all that much time to think about it. So I'm just grabbing the knot and pulling for all that I'm worth. And with one finger, it was just not enough strength. So I shoved another finger in there and grabbed the knot. And I knew I only had seconds left. And I said to myself, I have one shot, one chance to get this right. Otherwise, I'm a dead man. So I shoved a second finger in there, and I grabbed the knot, and I closed my eyes, and I clenched my teeth, and I pulled for everything that I was worth. And I felt something give way, and I fell forward, and I was out, and I was glad to be out. And the guys, they just looked at me, and they go, like this, and I gave them a few choice words, Yeah, which I will not repeat. Anyway, they just turned around and went over and sat down on their cots, and I went over and sat down with them. I sat down right beside Corporal Jason Laycock, and Corporal Tubby Page was sitting right across from him. Corporal Page reached underneath his cot and pulled out a brown paper bag. He unrolled it, and inside of it was a white AFES bag filled with what we call gee-dunk, or snacks, candy, soda, stuff like that, chocolate, chocolate chip cookies, whatever. And I actually leaned forward and looked down inside the bag, and I saw that he had mostly some Ho-Hos and some Twinkies and Star Crunches. He had a couple Gatorades inside of there, lemon, lime, orange. And at that point I was like, okay, you didn't need anything to eat. You already had a bag full, but in the meantime, he began, he closed up his bag and was eating some Ho-Hos, which comes 3 in a package. And these are the ones with the chocolate icing around the outside, but on the inside it looks like a swirl of chocolate cake and icing. Pretty good. You can actually twirl them and eat them at the same time until there's nothing left in the center. Well, anyway, it was a strange story, I know, but probably not as strange as one I'm telling. But anyway, he took about 5 minutes to tell this story, and I'd heard it once already, so I was just sitting there listening, sitting next to Corporal Jason Laycock. And Jason Laycock was just pestering, just bugging him to death for one of those Ho-Hos. Every 15 seconds he'd be like, yeah, can I get one? Oh yeah, that's neat. How about now? And he's just, pestering him, and I'm just looking at the two. And 3 times while he was telling this story, he leaned over and he would look me right in the face as he was wrapping up the third one and wrapping up his story. And finally he gave over half of a Ho-Ho to Jason Laycock. He leans over and he looks at me right in the face. He's only 4 feet away from me. He leans over and he looks me right in the face. He goes, I don't think he's playing. Of course, we're the only 3 in the room, so I'm just like, what's he talking about? So Jason Laycock and I turn and look back, and sure enough, there's my body hanging from the noose. Needless to say, I was completely shocked. So I immediately, just shocked, I just stood up, and I turned and faced my body, which was hanging from that noose roughly about 30 feet away, 15 feet away, so I could get a better look, and sure enough, it was definitely me. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, how can I be there and here at the same time? I look down and I'm sure enough I'm wearing the same green t-shirt, the same brown web belt, the same camouflage pants, the same black boots. I even pulled my dog tags out and I was still wearing them. But it was when I pulled my dog tags out that I dropped them, and I looked at my hand and I realized that if I stared at my hand, I could see through my hand and see the sand on the ground. And that's when I realized I was dead. And I had been dead and sitting next to my friends for 5 minutes, and then I realized they didn't even know I was there. They couldn't see me. That's when Jason Laycock came up and he knelt down beside me and he took a photograph of my body hanging from that noose, and I was standing there right beside him, and of course he had no clue that I was standing beside him. But anyway, he goes, now that's a good picture, and snaps the last photo. The film began to rewind, and Corporal Tubby Page walked up and looked beside him and just gave him this stupid look like, are you, and he actually said exactly what I was thinking, are you retarded? He goes, look at him. And of course he was saying a few expletives, which I will not repeat, but he goes, look at him. He goes, his nose is blue, his lips are blue, his eyelids are blue, there's drool hanging out of his mouth all the way down to the ground. And he goes, are you a bleeping retard? But anyway, after he took the picture and the little guy berated him a little bit, he a couple days later stood up, took a couple steps forward, and then realized that what he was saying was true. He saw that my extremities on my face were blue, so he tossed his camera off over towards his rack, not really caring for its care at all where it landed. He just tossed it, and he ran forward and he grabbed my body around the waist and picked up. When he did this, he screamed for Corporal Page to come over there and get the noose off my neck. Now, myself, I was thinking it was a little bit backwards. I mean, the tough guy should have been picking me up while the other guy was getting the rope off my neck. In my mind, that's the way that it should have worked. I'm glad that it didn't work that way, though, because otherwise I would still be in that noose. Because Corporal Page, for all his strength, barely got the noose off my neck. And I mean, he had to really struggle with it, and it was something to watch him struggle with it. While he was struggling with it, I actually thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to try to step into my body and stand up. And bad idea. When I tried that, when I stepped forward trying to step forward into my body, it was just like somebody slugged me. I mean, just as hard as I could possibly be hit. And the sense of vertigo came over, it overtook me and just weakened me. So I actually stumbled backwards like dizzy. And I said, okay, bad idea. And that's actually when I became concerned. I wasn't too concerned before. Even though I realized I was dead, I was not concerned about it, which is an odd thing, I know. And mostly unbelievable. I mean, I was just mostly in shock. Anyway, they managed, for all his strength, it took him 2 or 3 tries to get the rope off my neck, and he was just exhausted afterwards. I mean, his arms were completely burned out. And like I said, this is a guy who lifts weight in the gym constantly, so he really exerted himself. If it had been the other way around, Jason's small frame would have never been able to get that rope off my neck, even though the other guy could probably held me up for hours, but it never would have come off. So anyway, they drag my body over and they throw it on my rack, and immediately Corporal Page began to freak out. I mean, he's like, oh my God, we gotta tell somebody, we gotta do something. I mean, he was in the go mode while Corporal Page was sitting over there like the thinker. You could tell his mind was just turning at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And he was looking over there at Corporal Page, and he was like, shut up, stop pacing. And I'm thinking, I mean, he was the thinker. I mean, if he could have come with a way or a story to throw over this so that they could have gotten out of it, he would have been the one to come up with it, while the other guy was just completely freaking out. In the meantime, I thought, okay, well, this is my opportunity. My body's not moving around anymore. It's laying down. It's, in a stable position. I'll just lay back down into my body. And so that's pretty much what I did. I placed my foot inside of my foot and my other foot inside my foot, and I sat down just like I'm sitting now. And I looked back and saw how my body was laying and how my head was positioned, so I just leaned back into my body. And as my head went inside my head, because you got to remember, my soul was laying down into my body. I know it sounds weird when I say my foot inside my foot, my head inside my head, but you'll get the picture now. So anyway, I'm leaning back, and as soon as my head falls inside my head, I'm instantaneously standing up, and I'm in complete darkness. I mean, it's a darkness that you could almost feel. I know it sounds weird, it doesn't make any sense, but that's the only way that I can put it. I mean, because this darkness had like a texture to it, and it was complete darkness. It was just solid black. And I know the first thing I thought to myself is, well, where am I? And I had no clue where I was. I was still wearing everything that I'd been wearing before, only I was just in this place that I didn't recognize at all. And the first thing I noticed is that there is nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean absolutely nothing. There's no light, no wind, no sound, nothing. And I thought to myself, there can't be nothing. I'm standing on something. So I looked down, and I'm standing on nothing. I mean, the only way I can liken it to is if you went inside of a giant warehouse and elevated yourself a good 30 feet off the ground until you stood on a plate of glass, so that when you dimmed the lights you couldn't see the ground beneath you, but yet you could still see beneath you. That's the only way I can explain it to. It was like standing on air that was hard as stone, but had no reflection. You know, it's like standing on hardened air or glass that had no reflection. That's the closest I can come to explaining it. But when you look down, you could literally see beneath your feet for a couple feet down, but you were standing on nothing. And I thought to myself, well, if I was in a completely dark room, I wouldn't be able to see my hand in front of my face. How is it that I'm able to see what there's light coming from somewhere? And so I looked up, because that's where pretty much all sources of light are, whether you're inside or outside, they're above you. So I looked up and I see nothing. And that's when I realized that I was the one that was emanating the light that I was able to see with. I was glowing like a chem light, you know, those little shape lights that you use for walking around Halloween, or for the military we used it for different things. But the little chemical lights that have the little glass thing in it, and you break them and you shake them up. I was glowing like that. I was glowing this very, very dim white light that I was able to see maybe 10 feet in a complete 360 all around me. In all directions I could see away from me, because I was emanating this light. But that's how dim it was. I thought to myself, okay, well, I don't understand how I'm emanating this light. It doesn't make any sense to me, but what I do know is one thing. I'm standing on some kind of ground. And I thought to myself, if there's a ground, maybe there's a ceiling. So I went to reach my hand up, and as I reached my hand up, I touched the ceiling without touching it. And I know how ridiculous that sounds. But if you can imagine your consciousness reaching up and touching something and knowing for 100% sure that it's there without having to physically touch it. I mean, it's not such a alien concept in all actuality. I mean, because with light, we're able to see everything around us. I mean, I can see that mirror that's, you know, a good 15 feet behind me, maybe 20 feet behind me. I can see that mirror. I don't have to go over there and touch it to know it's real. But I know for 100% sure that it's there. And the same way, and it kind of shocked me because I jerked my hand back down. I was like, whoa, there's a ceiling up there, and I know that it's there. I can't see it, but I know for 100% sure that it's there. And I said, okay, I don't understand that either. There's a lot of things I didn't understand about this place, but or how I was able to feel things without touching them. I mean, some of these things just made no sense to me whatsoever. But I thought to myself, okay, there's a floor, there's a ceiling. Ceilings don't hold themselves up. There's got to be a wall somewhere. If there's a wall, there's a door, there's a window, there's a way out of here. So I went to take a step forward to go find myself a door to get out. And, you know, and as I took a step forward, the only way I can describe it is like a rubber band. If you take a rubber band, you can stretch it. And that's how it's either my body did or my consciousness did. All I know is I found myself moving forward at a very rapid pace, but yet my back foot was still in place. As I stretched out and wanted to go that direction, I did at a very rapid pace. I stretched out maybe like 1, 2, 3 football fields. While the back stays in place, the front stretching out, and that's the only way I can explain it. All I know is I knew for 100% sure that I was moving forward at a very rapid pace, but I was getting nowhere. So with my back foot in place, I began to spin, and as I'm stretching out, I begin to realize that I'm standing in between two parallel planes that stretch on forever, and there's no walls, there's no doors, there's no windows. I'm trapped in between these two parallel planes, and there's no way out. And when I realized that, I pulled my foot back and put it down without even having left where I was standing. Like I said, I stretched out at least 3 football fields worth of length, a good 300 yards. And from that point, I became very scared. And but before I could even think another thought, I was snatched up off of my feet by a very, very large demon. Of course, for me, I didn't know what had happened. It was like getting hit by a truck, and having no clue that it was ever coming. This thing had come up behind me so fast, and it caught me by complete surprise, and it was so big. I can't possibly begin to describe what it's like being, what it feels like to be in the grips of something that big. But I'll do my best. 1 minute I'm standing there, the next minute I'm leaning backwards like this. My feet are out more or less in front of me, and they're popping. And I had this pain just shooting from my head to my feet like a bolt of electricity, but it's not stopping. It's like being constantly shocked or electrocuted. And I had this pounding sensation, this hurting pounding sensation coming from my left shoulder that hurts even worse than this electricity that's running through my body. And I look to my left, and I see these fingers which come down to roughly the bottom of my chest. And it was even hard to look over to the side because the depth of its hand was like this. The width of its hand was like this. I mean, it literally went from the side of my neck out to maybe past the end of my shoulder, the width of its hand. The color of its skin was black and red. Now, I don't know if it was red with black shadows moving across it, or if it was red with a black oily substance like a cloud moving beneath the skin, so that it makes it have a perception of moving while it's standing still. You know, kind of like the sky stands still and the clouds move across it. Kind of like that. I'm watching these giant red fingers with blackness moving through it. Now, like I said, I don't know if it was shadows or if it was a substance beneath the skin. All I know is the fingers were very big. Each one was about this big around and roughly about this long. And this thing was crushing my left shoulder. Now, one thing I do understand in retrospect is that pain when you have no body. When you have a body, I can break a finger, and it only hurts here, where the break is. It doesn't hurt at my feet. But when you're in your soul's body, when your soul experiences pain, you experience it everywhere because there's no pain receptors to stop your brain from saying, oh, it hurts here. No, it hurts everywhere. Anywhere you experience pain, it runs through your body like electricity. You feel it from the very top of your hairs to the bottom of the soles of your feet. If I hit you in the leg, you would feel it in your ear. For as weird as that sounds, you would feel it everywhere. Because, like I said, there's no specific pain receptors. You just feel pain as if it were a bolt of electricity through your entire body. The only thing that lets you know exactly where you received that pain from would be that pounding sensation, kind of like a heartbeat, that throbbing sensation when you got an infection. That's the only thing that lets you know exactly where you've been hit. You feel it everywhere though. And this thing had a hold of me, and I'm looking down at these fingers, and I'm just thinking to myself, what is this that has a hold of me? And as I'm thinking this, I understand now, also in retrospect, that anything that you think in this place can be heard as if you had spoken it out loud. And this thing had me like this, and was just smiling at me. It had looked back, and it was smiling at me, waiting for me to look at it. And when I looked over my shoulder and up at it, it was already staring at me. And I understand now that it had heard what I was thinking and just wanted to give me a nice little shock, you know, on top of the pain that I was already experiencing. Just because of the grotesqueness of its face. I mean, this thing was grotesque. And it was huge. Overall, the thing, I know this sounds already more crazy than everything that I've already said, but this thing is 13 feet tall, and it's not like I sat there and said, okay, stand still, let me grab a step ladder and measure you. Where's my tape measure? You know, no. Anything that you want to know in this place, all you have to do is ask it. Ask it in your mind or ask it out loud, and the answer will be given to you. It doesn't matter. I understood that it was taking me to the portion that I did not, certainly anyone would not want to go to, which was the fire and brimstone portion. It was going to take me to that fiery lake and cast me in, and I understood that. And when I understood that, it was mortally appalling, is the only way I can put it. I mean, it played over and over in my head again. It's taking me to hell, it's taking me to hell, it's taking me to hell. And there was just nothing I could do. Nothing I could do to stop it, nothing I could do to prevent it. And I just kind of dropped my head. And while this is playing over and over and over in my head that it's taking me to hell, and I saw this pinpoint of light, you know. Well, before I saw the pinpoint of light, I started thinking to myself, you know, this is wrong. I'm not a bad guy. I've never murdered anyone. I've never done anything just drastic that you know would cause you to be placed in hell, for sure. For me, I was just an average person. I drank a few beers, smoked a few cigarettes. I wasn't like into drugs or, you know, anything like that. I mean, I was just an average guy. I go to church every once in a while, you know, so I didn't really picture myself as bad, you know, not bad enough to end up in hell. But one thing that I understand now is there's plenty of good people in hell. A lot of people that used to call themselves Christians are there, and it's because they didn't really devote their life to God. They lived one foot in and one foot out like I did, you know. And you don't have to be a bad person to go to hell. All you have to do is just be average. God doesn't call us to be average. He calls us to be holy, like He is. But as I was thinking this to myself, that I'm not such a bad guy, why I'm ending up here, that's when that light appeared. And I looked up at it. It looked like a star far off in the night sky. Something so tiny and insignificant and far away that it couldn't possibly help me. And then I saw it moved off to the left a little bit, and I picked my eyes up, you know, and my head up, and I looked at it, and I thought to myself, did we just change direction, or did it move? You know, and it went back to the right, and I thought for myself, no, for certain, we didn't change direction, it moved. And I thought to myself, what is that? And as I thought that, and began to focus in on it, it just came rushing at me like the only way I can describe it is the speed of this thing was like a bolt of lightning. It came at me so fast that one moment it was just like a tiny little star in the night sky, and the next minute, white, bright, blinding white light. And his hand was reaching down to me, and it was an angel. Sorry. And my hand just reached up and grabbed its hand. thinking to myself, I'm going to reach up there and grab his hand, and this hand is going to save me, because that's all that I saw was just a hand. But my hand knew what to do. It was like having a baseball thrown at your head. Somebody says heads up, and you just reach up and grab it. It's a reflex. My hand just reflects, and a reflex just jumped up and grabbed this angel's head. And as soon as I touched its head, we were all motionless and all standing back up on this ground that you can't see. And this beast, this demon, it still had me by the shoulder. It was kind of almost even leaned over a little bit to grab me by the shoulder. And I could instinctively, I knew to stand still, because if I had moved, I know that would have ripped my shoulder and my arm off at the same time and just beat me with it. I mean, the thing was just that massively strong. I knew within me there was something telling me, don't move. And I'm just standing there, staring up, looking at this angel. And the angel itself, to describe it for you, was 9 feet 6 inches tall. It had brown wavy hair pushed to the back. It had an olive color skin. It wasn't really white, it wasn't really black, it was somewhere in between, but the light that was emanating from within it was so bright white that it almost practically overshadowed the color of its skin. You couldn't even really, you had to stare to see the color of its skin. And I keep saying it because it's an it. It's not really a he or a she. Although the body is shaped like a he. Okay, it's shaped like a male. When you look at its face, the face is like the most handsome man that you've ever seen, blended in perfectly with the most beautiful woman that you've ever seen. I mean, when you look at this angel, you think to yourself, wow, he is beautiful. And I know that's some odd words to say. Its eyes were blue, and when I mean blue, I mean perfect blue. Like someone took a portion of the sky and put it in its eyes, or dipped a cup out of the ocean and poured it into its eye. There was no flaw in it. No flaw. Perfectly beautiful in all ways. And this thing, I can feel its anger, this demon's anger, like heat from a fire. And it turns around like this to see what had stopped it and why. It wanted to know what had stopped it and why. Because technically I was right where I belonged. And once you're there in hell, you don't normally get a chance to leave. So it owned me like a piece of furniture, and it wanted to know why it was being stopped. So it turned around and was ready to fight. Make no mistake, this demon was ready to get down in the worst way. But as it whipped around, this angel its speed was incredible, and it just rushed forward and with an open palm hit this demon, and it had to angle its arm upwards at about the height of its head to hit this demon in the chest. And it hit this demon with such power. I mean, I can't describe the fierceness of the power of this thing, but it hit this demon with such force that its hand was literally ripped from my shoulder. It had no clue what had hit it. By the time it had even turned its head, it was already hit. And this demon was hit with such force that it literally folded up and started flying backwards, folded in half like this, flying backwards. And I'm just watching it fly backwards and skip off this ground that you can't see, like a stone over water. And this angel looked at me and he called me by a long name, and I immediately understood it to be mine. It was a heavenly name. But as soon as it called me this name, it took it from my mind. It called me this name to let me know that, more or less, that I still have a chance to make it into heaven. You know, like, I have a heavenly name. I squandered it. I wasted it. But when he called me this long name, it was a feeling of home. You know, like when your mom calls you for dinner or supper, however you want to say it. But anyway, he said, he began to speak to me, but I got distracted by this demon that had gotten back up and was coming back after me. It was coming back to get me. And it was coming back to fight this angel for my soul. So I looked back at him like, whatever you got to say, please just hurry up and say it. And if you want to get me out of here, please get me out of here. You know, and this is what I was literally thinking. You know, and he just looked at me and he gave me a saddened look. And he looked at me and he just goes, your time has not yet come. It's time for you to go. And he points his finger, and when I stepped in that direction, my soul immediately went back to my body. Just as fast as I had appeared in this place, I left this place, and I was back in my body, laying on that cot where I knew I should, and my eyes opened. And it took me a good 20 minutes to get to walking again, simply because my entire body had fallen asleep. And I'm almost certain that after having been dead for 8 minutes, that there must have been angels there.